Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, tonight I want you to prepare your hearts, your minds, and your spirits, because something powerful is about to shift in your life. I'm not talking about luck. I'm talking about divine alignment. I'm not talking about chasing after money. I'm talking about commanding the flow of abundance that has been waiting. Yes, waiting for your voice to unlock it. There is a sound that heaven responds to, a decree that opens financial gates, a prayer that carries weight in the unseen realm. When you pray with revelation, when your words are backed by faith and authority, everything that has been held back must be released. For too long, many have believed that struggle is holy, that scarcity is somehow spiritual. But tonight we break that lie. You were not created to live in lack. You were created to be a conduit of overflow. Money is not your master, it's your servant. Wealth is not wicked when it is guided by divine purpose. And when your heart aligns with the right spiritual frequency, resources begin to locate you. Contracts, opportunities, divine connections, doors that were bolted shut begin to swing open as if they recognize your name. This is not about manipulation or mere positive thinking. This is about spiritual law. It's about understanding that prayer is not begging, it's legislating. You are heaven's ambassador on earth, authorized to call forth provision from the invisible into the visible. So when you open your mouth in faith, angels move, systems shift, and the economy of heaven begins to flow in your direction. When you understand the power of prophetic prayer, you step into a realm where your words are no longer ordinary. They become divine instruments of creation. Prophetic prayer is not about asking, it is about declaring. It is the language of kings and priests, the sound that governs heaven and earth. When a person prays prophetically, they are not hoping for a change, they are authorizing it. Their voice carries the vibration of divine will, and when spoken with faith and conviction, it begins to reorder circumstances to align with that decree. Every financial breakthrough, every open door, every release of resources begins in the unseen realm before it manifests in the natural. Prophetic prayer penetrates that unseen dimension and unlocks what has been divinely assigned to you, but delayed by spiritual resistance or mental limitation. Money, wealth, and provision are not random occurrences. They respond to spiritual laws. The universe, governed by divine order, is voice activated. When you speak under divine authority, you are not just making noise. You are issuing commands that heaven must honor. The prayer that releases financial overflow is not filled with anxiety or desperation, but saturated with revelation and power. It recognizes that abundance is your inheritance and lack is an illegal intruder. Through prophetic prayer, you begin to shift your position from a place of need to a place of dominion, and the atmosphere around you starts to conform to your words. Angels are dispatched, opportunities are magnetized, and resources begin to flow from unexpected directions. Prophetic prayer operates from alignment, not effort. When your spirit, mind, and mouth agree with divine truth, you become a channel for heaven's economy. You don't chase blessings. They are drawn to you because your frequency matches divine abundance. Financial doors open because your words carry the authority of purpose. You begin to call forth contracts, clients' favor, and partnerships without striving. Things that once seemed impossible begin to unfold naturally because your decree carries divine backing. This kind of prayer doesn't just change your bank account. It changes your identity. It reminds you that you are not a beggar of blessings, but a distributor of divine resources. You are not waiting for a miracle. You are the miracle. Every time you engage in prophetic prayer, you are legislating abundance, setting divine order in motion. You begin to understand that prayer is not a ritual, it is a strategy. It is the system through which heaven's wealth is transferred into your hands. The more you declare, the more you attract, because your words carry creative energy. You start to see money as a servant of purpose, not an object of pursuit. The atmosphere begins to shift around you as you speak life over your finances, your business, your career, and your destiny. When you pray prophetically, your words become currency in the spirit, each declaration an investment into your future harvest. and each word a key unlocking financial doors you once thought were beyond your reach. Every limitation that exists in your life begins first in the mind and then seeps into the spirit. The reason many never experience true financial overflow is not because heaven has denied them, but because they have unconsciously agreed with barriers that were never meant to exist. Breaking mental and spiritual barriers is the foundation for unlocking supernatural abundance. You cannot manifest what you secretly doubt, and you cannot receive what you subconsciously resist. Your beliefs act as gates, either opening the flow of wealth or shutting it down. If your inner conversation is filled with fear, unworthiness, and scarcity, even your most powerful prayers will feel muted. But when you begin to renew your mind and align your spirit with divine truth, you start to dismantle the walls that have held your prosperity hostage. The spirit of lack thrives on deception. It whispers that abundance is for others, that success requires struggle, that prosperity contradicts humility. These lies take root in the subconscious and create invisible ceilings. Breaking them requires a conscious decision to reject every belief that conflicts with divine supply. Prayer becomes the weapon of transformation. Every declaration of abundance replaces a thought of limitation. Every prophetic word uproots the seeds of insufficiency. As you pray, your words begin to rewire your inner atmosphere. You start to see yourself as heaven sees you, worthy, capable, anointed to prosper. That inner vision becomes the magnet for external wealth. Spiritual barriers are often built by experiences, failures, betrayals, disappointments that convince the soul it must settle for less. These barriers are subtle yet powerful. They show up as hesitation when opportunity knocks, as guilt when success appears, as fear when growth demands faith. Breaking them means confronting those internal strongholds and replacing them with divine truth. When the spirit is liberated from guilt and fear, divine resources can flow freely. The energy of heaven cannot pass through a mind bound by doubt. It requires an open channel, a consciousness that believes prosperity is not an exception but an expectation. Financial freedom starts in the invisible realm of belief. When your mind is renewed, your reality must obey. As you declare abundance, meditate on provision, and envision overflow, you are building a new internal architecture. The mind becomes fertile ground for manifestation. You begin to attract divine ideas, strategic partnerships, and unexpected resources. The same opportunities that once overlooked you now recognize your voice, because your frequency has changed. Breaking barriers is not just about rejecting lack. It's about creating space for divine increase. Every time you speak life, you tear down a wall. Every time you act in faith, you dismantle a chain. When the mind and spirit come into alignment with divine abundance, nothing external can contain the flow that begins to pour from heaven into your life. When faith, words, and purpose come into alignment, they create a supernatural synergy that opens financial doors no human effort could ever unlock. Faith is the ignition. Words are the vehicle, and purpose is the destination. When these three are harmonized, the spiritual atmosphere begins to respond. Money, opportunities, and favor are not random occurrences. They are drawn to alignment. Faith without words is dormant, words without faith are empty, and purpose without either lacks direction. But when all three flow together, they activate divine movement. You become a living decree, a vessel through which heaven releases provision. Every declaration becomes a seed, every step of faith a magnet for divine resources. Faith is more than belief. It is spiritual substance. It creates the framework upon which your future abundance is built. Faith gives permission for the unseen to manifest in the seen. When you pray in faith, you are not hoping for provision, you are expecting it. Your confidence becomes a signal to the universe that you are ready for overflow. Yet faith must be expressed through words. The tongue is the bridge between thought and reality. What you speak consistently with conviction begins to structure your environment. Words carry vibration, and when spoken in alignment with divine purpose, they release power that shifts both spiritual and physical circumstances. Purpose gives direction to your prosperity. Without purpose, abundance becomes scattered and unanchored. When you understand why you are called to prosper, heaven entrusts you with greater resources. Purpose purifies your motives and ensures that wealth flows through you, not just to you. When your intention is aligned with divine will, when your desire for increase is connected to service, generosity, and destiny, the flow of provision becomes unstoppable. Financial doors open not because you chase them, but because your assignment requires them. Heaven funds purpose. When faith, words, and purpose align, the atmosphere around you begins to change. You no longer speak from a place of lack, but from authority. Your language evolves from pleading to commanding, from fear to certainty. You begin to call things that are not as though they were, and the universe obeys because your words carry the resonance of divine order. Every time you declare abundance, every time you act on faith with clarity of purpose, you build momentum in the spirit. Angels respond to your decrees. People are positioned to bless you, and systems rearrange themselves to accommodate your increase. The same doors that once seemed sealed begin to swing open effortlessly because your vibration matches the frequency of overflow. Alignment is heaven's protocol for release. When your faith believes it, your words declare it, and your purpose demands it, every financial barrier must yield, and every resource assigned to your destiny begins to locate you with precision and speed. There comes a moment when you realize that the greatest transformation doesn't begin in your circumstances, but within your mindset. The difference between living in survival and stepping into dominion lies in how you perceive yourself in relation to the world, to wealth, and to divine authority. Survival thinking is rooted in fear. It is focused on getting by, holding on, and hoping things improve. Dominion thinking, however, is grounded in faith. It is about expansion, stewardship, and creation. When you transition from survival to dominion, you no longer see money as something to chase, but as something that responds to your divine identity. You stop reacting to life and start commanding it. Transforming your mindset begins with recognizing that you were never designed to live in limitation. You are an expression of divine creativity, equipped with the capacity to manifest abundance in every area of life. The mind is the battlefield where poverty or prosperity is first won. As long as you think small, you will live small. When you begin to renew your mind with truth, you start to break cycles of dependency and fear. You realize that dominion is not arrogance. It is awareness of authority. It is the understanding that you have been empowered to create, to build, to influence, and to multiply. When you operate in dominion, you approach challenges differently. Obstacles no longer intimidate you because you see them as opportunities to exercise faith. You understand that provision is not determined by economy, geography, or connections. It flows from divine supply through the channel of your belief. The more your mindset expands, the more you attract what aligns with that expansion. Dominion thinkers don't ask for permission to prosper. They take responsibility for activating prosperity through purpose and obedience. They understand that wealth is not just about accumulation, but about distribution. They are stewards of divine resources, shaping the world with vision and integrity. Through spiritual authority, you begin to speak differently. You no longer confess struggle. You decree success. You no longer hope for breakthrough. You command it. Your language begins to align with your new identity, and your reality follows suit. Dominion is not about control over others. It is about mastery over self, over fear, doubt, and limitation. As your thoughts evolve, your energy changes, and you begin to magnetize opportunities that once seemed out of reach. People are drawn to your confidence because it carries spiritual weight. Systems start to recognize your authority because your mindset carries divine backing. Transformation from survival to dominion is a process of awakening. It is realizing that you were never meant to beg for blessings. You were born to release them. The moment your mind shifts, heaven's economy begins to move on your behalf. You stop living from paycheck to paycheck and start operating from promise to purpose. Every decision, every prayer, every declaration begins to reflect a consciousness that knows abundance is not an exception, but a divine expectation. Prayer was never meant to be a passive act of pleading, but a powerful tool of legislation. When you begin to use prayer as a decree rather than a request, you step into your rightful role as an ambassador of heaven. You realize that your words carry governmental weight in the spiritual realm. Through prayer, you are not merely expressing desire, you are authorizing manifestation. You are drafting spiritual laws that dictate how resources, opportunities, and abundance must move in your favor. Every time you pray with revelation, you are setting divine order in motion, commanding alignment between heaven's provision and your earthly need. The universe operates on divine law, and prayer is the medium through which those laws are enforced. You have been given authority to bind and loose, to open and close, to call forth and to dismiss. When you pray with this understanding, you no longer beg for blessings, you execute them. Heaven recognizes your voice when it carries the tone of faith and purpose. You begin to legislate abundance by declaring the promises of God as present realities, not future possibilities. Every word you release in faith becomes a decree that angels respond to, creating pathways for wealth, contracts, and favor to locate you. When prayer becomes legislative, it transcends emotion and enters execution. It is not about how long or loud you pray, but about the authority behind your words. You begin to speak with precision, knowing that your declarations shape outcomes. Prayer shifts from being reactive to proactive. Instead of praying after lack appears, you pray before it can form. Instead of asking for open doors, you command them to open because you understand that access was already granted. You legislate abundance by aligning your words with divine principles of increase, sowing, and stewardship. Every declaration made in the posture of authority sends ripples through the spiritual atmosphere. Systems begin to move, people are divinely positioned, and circumstances rearrange themselves to fulfill your decree. You start to see evidence of prayer, not as coincidence, but as confirmation. Financial overflow becomes predictable because it follows a pattern of spiritual law. You speak it, you believe it, and it must manifest because spiritual legislation cannot return void. Prayer is not about convincing heaven. It's about activating what heaven already approved. As you continue to legislate through prayer, your consciousness expands. You begin to think like a ruler, not a refugee of circumstance. You speak to money as though it were a servant, commanding it to align with divine purpose. You address obstacles not as problems, but as territories waiting to be governed. Every time you pray with authority, you reaffirm your dominion in the earth. You become a spiritual architect, designing the structure of your financial future with your words. The more you decree, the more tangible your abundance becomes, because legislative prayer does not chase manifestation. It produces it through spiritual command. And now, brothers and sisters, as you rise from this moment, rise with the consciousness that you are not waiting for wealth, you are walking in it. The heavens have already approved your increase. The gates of abundance are already unlocked, and the current of divine provision is already flowing in your direction. Speak with power, move with confidence, and decree with authority, for creation is waiting to respond to your voice. Let every word you release carry faith. Let every prayer you utter carry fire. And let every step you take echo destiny. You are not a seeker of blessings. You are a carrier of them. The overflow has begun. And everything that belongs to you is being summoned into your hands right now.